Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Beth Doyle. I'm the manager of health and wellness at Always Health Partners. Thank you all for joining us today. The past months have been very challenging for everyone due to COVID-19. While in recent weeks, we've seen our country rise up in support of what is just and what is right. With all of the uncertainty and associated fear, anxiety, and hope, we've been looking to offer resources to promote resilience, manage stress and anxiety, and ultimately bring us all to a better place. I'd like to introduce our speaker today, Dr. Jan Seward. Jan is a licensed clinical psychologist with practices in both New York and Massachusetts. She has worked in the integrative health field for over 30 years, both in private practice and as a professor of naturopathic medicine. In her practice, she sees individuals, couples, and families with an emphasis on holistic health and healing. She can be contacted through her website, which is www.drjanseward.com, and we will include that in materials at the end, so you don't have to write that down. I hope everyone enjoys today's presentation, and now I'll turn this over to Jan.
Thank you, Lisa Beth. Hello, everyone. So glad you're able to be on the call today on the webinar. And as Lisa Beth said, there's never been a time when we've had to face more stressors in our lives. And so when I was asked if I might have something to talk about, I thought, well, what a better thing to talk about than how to keep our immune system strong. And there's been, since the COVID virus, there's been so much information coming at us about immunity, about the immune system, and it can be really overwhelming. And I thought it was really important to share that it can actually be a very simple process. So that's why the title of our talk today is called Strengthen Your Immune System. It's as simple as A, B, C. So here we go, the ABCs of a strong immune system. We're just going to start with a little bit of a background that stress is the body's response to a threat, either real or imagined. And of course, today there's a lot of real threats to our health through the virus, threats to the way that we're used to our society being organized, and also just the big uncertainties that have come to us as almost everything that we've come to rely on is now in a state of change. So these threats are experienced in our body as stress. So when the body responds to stress, different chemicals can get released. And in small amounts, these chemicals can be very helpful. They add protection and give the body what it needs to counter the effects of the stressors. But when stress is too much or goes on for too long, these same chemicals become damaging and they cause additional stress to the immune system. So some stress-induced chemicals you may have heard of are cortisol, catecholamines, and epinephrine. You're not going to need to remember these, but you might recognize them when you see them again. Okay, here's the only complicated slide I'm going to show today, and it's a beautiful slide because it shows the entire system in the body where stress is processed. Stress comes in both through the brain in the way that we perceive things, but also it comes in through other systems, through what we might be taking in terms of food or other supplements or substances into the body. And it also comes internally through our emotions and how we're perceiving the things that are happening to us. And you can see that the effects of stress, and this is the brain, it's the brain stem, it's something called the hypothalamic pituitary axis, the HPA axis. I promise that's as complicated as we're going to get today. But there's a whole system in our body and it's a feedback loop. When stress comes in or stress happens internally, all this feedback loop gets activated and it can show up in different ways. As you can see, it can show up as an emotional state, a physiological emotional state like depression. It can show up as infection or tissue damage or tissue destruction. And this is why when we look at, how to stay resilient, especially in a time of a pandemic, we want to be sure that we're doing everything we can do to keep the effects of these stressors tolerable and manageable, because also we don't want something that's called acute stress, which is a short-term reaction to stress in the body. We don't want acute stress to turn into chronic stress reactions. So coping with stress, it really is as easy as the ABCs. So A is for attention. It's really important to notice your stress, and the ways that we can see if stress is really affecting us is through the basic systems of the body. How are we sleeping? How are we eating and digesting our food? Are we feeling more anxiety? Are we more irritable? Are we feeling more intense anger or aggression? And also, is there a higher level of emotionality? All of these things can be signs that the stress that we're experiencing is beginning to overwhelm or overtax our ability to cope with it. So we can't change what we don't notice. So A is for attention. A is also for attitude. It's really interesting that the body doesn't know the difference between what's kind of happening out there in the world and how we perceive what's happening. So it's been demonstrated time and time again that how we feel about these stressors, our attitude towards what's happening, changes the way our body reacts. So if we want to change our chemicals, we need to change our thoughts. And this is why I say thoughts are things. It's really important to stay positive. Now, that doesn't mean a Pollyanna attitude. However, it does mean taking kind of a mental inventory of the types of thoughts we're thinking on a regular basis. If they tend to be very anxious-based thoughts, if they tend to be doom and gloom kinds of thoughts, or thinking about the worst kinds of attitudes, and there's not a glimmer of hope inside anywhere, your body is responding to that as a chronic stress. So A is for attitude, important to pay attention. A is also for adrenal support. The two glands in your body, the gland, there are a pair of them, the glands in your body that take the hardest hit with stress are your adrenal glands. They're situated right above your kidneys. They're not very big, but they do a very big job in the body. Adrenals are like batteries. We need to keep them charged. Short-term stress, the adrenals have enough charge in them to meet the demand that's being placed on them. But in long-term chronic stress, the adrenals get worn out. So you can go into a condition called adrenal fatigue. When adrenal fatigue goes on for too long, it becomes adrenal exhaustion. And once we're in a state of adrenal exhaustion, the immune system is completely overtaxed and lends itself to disease states. We become more susceptible to illness. It's harder to fight this illness and ward it off. How do we know when our adrenals are going into fatigue and then exhaustion? Well, all of those symptoms that I mentioned already about what do we need to pay attention to, you'll have disturbed sleep. Your digestion won't be functioning properly. Even your elimination is going to be affected. Also, it may be very difficult to feel calm or settled. You simply will feel exhausted and that you don't have enough gas in your tank. And that's a sign of adrenal fatigue. The good news is that there are many herbs and nutrients that help protect and strengthen the immune system and protect the adrenals. A couple of them are ginger, garlic, any of the antioxidants, which include fresh fruits and vegetables, and citrus. There are also some really wonderful products available that are specifically for adrenal support, and they will usually have a combination of herbs that are demonstrated to give the adrenals what they need. The next A is a really big one, and that's affection. It's so important to experience and express our love for ourselves and for the people that are around us, as well as our animals. So a daily dose of affection is really, really important. Now, this can be really difficult when we're living in lockdown, when we're isolated, especially if we're isolated without pets. Research shows that a daily dose of affection from a pet is hugely impactful on keeping the immune system strong. So I know this is going to sound funny, but there's a good reason why people are watching animal videos on their computers all the time. There is a release of these positive stress protecting hormones when we watch these things. So if you don't have a pet and if you're isolating alone, be sure that you get a daily dose of some kind of visual that represents affection. Because remember, the body doesn't know the difference between what it's watching and what it's experiencing. So those good hormones get released, even if we're just watching a pet video. Okay, so B is for balance. And this is a hard one, isn't it? Because all the demands of our lives, especially now, have never called for more attention to this B word, balance. And it can be really difficult to strike a balance. And maybe the first thing that goes out the window. And yet it's one of the most important things to pay attention to, the kinds of balance that we're always looking to. And remember, balance isn't a steady state. Think of yourself on a balance board or a seesaw. You're never stable. You're always in some kind of motion in relationship to balance. You're just always trying to get it in the best place possible at the time. So the kinds of balance we look for: work-life balance. One of the things about Zoom is that we could be Zooming all the time. And I think it's really funny that it's called Zoom because it's made us zoom up. It's made us speed up in terms of how many meetings that we attend. And so whatever work-life balance was there before we went into quarantine has been possibly disrupted, especially when you add on, if you have children, you've needed to homeschool. I don't need to tell you all the things we've all been dealing with. And yet it's really important to see that you have some work-life balance. A lot of times people will just set a limit at which they stop, work is done for the day. And the more that we're going to be working from home, that's going to be really, really important to know where the workday begins and where it ends. Also, to balance your needs with the needs of others. This is really very hard, very difficult, especially for women, but also for the men who are caregivers. It's very difficult to know what the right balance is and when to find the room in your house that you can go into, even if it's the bathroom, close the door and have some you time. What happens in the body is that even a small amount of that kind of time can reset the entire central nervous system, which is really what gets the biggest hit when stress keeps coming in. So really important to, again, pay attention to how the balance is working in your life. Also, screen time. This is hugely important. I don't know about you, but I've been finding that just by being on my computer screen or my phone for longer periods of time has really been draining my battery. And it has been shown that exposure to the light of the screen and the way that we kind of track data and have to pay attention actually does stress our immune system. So when you can manage your screen time, less is best. And it's so important now more than ever to get a balance in nature. Again, there's been so much research about the healing properties of nature. Simply looking at a picture of a tree, if you can't get out to see a tree, looking at a picture of a tree, imagining a scene in nature, when you imagine it, bringing all that you can to it, smell it, taste it, imagine you can touch it. The body doesn't know the difference. Even 5 minutes in nature is incredibly restorative to the immune system and releases those protective chemicals against the damaging chemicals that come out when we're stressed. B is for balance. B is also for belief, and I want to come back to this because it is so important. The body doesn't know the difference between thoughts and real things. In fact, thoughts are things. So if we believe that things will improve, if we believe that we can settle ourselves, if we believe that we can go to a more integrated state, the body follows along with that. It's incredibly cooperative. B is for belief. B is also for behaviors, and these behaviors flow into this idea of how we can use belief. Meditation is a very, very important form of stress reduction and immune support. Again, the research is strong. When people meditate, even for 10 minutes twice a day, the body has an immune response that's actually immune boosting. Relaxation, a similar thing. It's not as formal, perhaps, as meditation. And there are many types of meditation you can do. If you haven't, there are many apps on the phone, different ways to access meditation, and you don't have to sit still for meditation. You can actually do moving meditations. And relaxation is the same. Again, it's as simple as closing your eyes. Before we finish today, I'm actually going to show you two techniques that are really, really settling for the immune system and very strengthening of immunity. Exercise, not too much, not too strenuous, because that then can also begin to tax immunity. But in moderation, at a demand level that makes sense for you, is very, very important. Any kind of movement benefits the immune system. Self-care, these are the kinds of things that before the pandemic, we might have been going out of the house for. These might be things like manicures, pedicures, massages, any kind of thing where we've taken some time to be with ourselves in a way that's nurturing and nourishing. These things are still very, very important, and many of them can be done really beautifully at home. Again, when you see animals grooming each other, there's a reason that they do that. It isn't only for cleanliness. It actually stimulates immune fighting responses and stress reduction. And fun, finding ways for fun. And I know people have done a lot of really wonderful creative things to keep fun alive during the pandemic, and it's never been more important. The other B is for B vitamins. When the body is stressed, the B vitamins go to work, and they are the first in line for the body's buffering and defense system. So supplementing now with B vitamins has never been more important. Okay, so now we're on to C. C is for connection of all types, never been more important. Again, we know that social isolation is one of the largest factors for long-term chronic illness. And even if a person has something very seriously wrong, if they have the connection with loved ones, it's immune protective. So connect with your loved ones, connect with animals, again, connect with nature, and connect with yourself. A regular check-in, a daily check-in with yourself. How am I doing? What's happening? How am I feeling? And then reaching out. Who else is feeling this way? There's never been an easier time to connect through positive social media networks and keeping in touch with your loved ones and peers. And again, there's an immune boost whenever we connect with a loved one. And C is also for vitamin C. Larger doses than you might normally think of taking. If a daily dose of vitamin C is between 500 milligrams and 1,000 milligrams, during a super stressful time, you might double it. You could even triple it. So there are protective qualities of vitamin C that go beyond what we even understand right now. They're doing lots and lots of research on the impact of vitamin C. The other thing, it's not just what we're adding, but it's also what we might need to subtract right now. And this is a really challenging thing because we're in a very stressful moment. It makes complete sense that we would look for things to help us just kind of get away from it all. However, we also understand that these supplements, these these substances and substitutes for some other things that we may be needing actually tax our bodies and make us much more susceptible to disease. So nicotine, I know for those of us who have had issues with addiction to nicotine, and it's highly addictive, it's not an easy substance to come off of, but it is exceptionally taxing to the immune system. You know, immunity goes all throughout the body, but most of our immunity is in our gut, is in our intestines and our intestinal system. And nicotine binds with receptors in the gut, and it keeps out healthier things that could also be binding to those receptors. And that's one of the challenges. And that's one of the reasons why people who are smokers, not just because their lungs are more compromised, but also because the impact of nicotine on the immune system makes people with COVID can make them much sicker and much poorer outcomes if they do get the virus. So if you can quit, never been a better time. Alcohol, limit it. A glass of something every day, an ounce a day. Okay. Beyond that, it begins to really, first of all, the first thing that alcohol does is eat up the B vitamins in the system. And as we've already said, now's the time that you need all your B vitamins. So limit alcohol. I've put sugar in capital letters because the biggest immunity killer is sugar. When sugar gets added to a cellular petri dish, suddenly the cell's ability to fight off an invader is kind of cut way down. So when you add refined sugar to your diet, you really are now not giving your immune system what it needs to be able to fight what's coming in. Caffeine, limit other stimulants and things that might be depressants. So if you're using substances that it's just much easier now to use them in quantities that again really tax our immune system on their own. We don't need to, I get this image of the immune system with, you know, at least one hand tied behind its back. Right now, the immune system needs everything it can to fight what's coming at us. So to the extent that you can avoid these things, it's really important. Okay, we are survivors. We are built for this. We are meant to get through this. Our bodies research again has shown that human civilization has actually advanced as a result of the stressors that are thrown at us. So the times in human civilization and human history when we've had the biggest advancements have been at times of catastrophic stress. So that's the good news. We're built for this. We will get through this. And we're going to do it much stronger. We'll come out the other end in much better shape when we just keep it simple like the ABCs. So before we open it up to questions, I want to show you two very simple techniques that will instantly help bring your body back into a state of what's called self-regulation. What that means is that it's bringing the nervous system into a state of something called coherence. Very quick little lesson here. The nervous system has two branches. One's called the sympathetic nervous system. And that's the one, if you see that tiger, like from the first slide, you're going to say, oh man, I better fight, flee, or freeze. That's the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what starts firing when we have way too much stress. The parasympathetic nervous system, and I like to remember this like a parachute, just gliding down. The parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite. It's the one that we call rest and digest. And to the amount of times that we're able to activate that parasympathetic nervous system, it is a buffer for all of those chemicals that can be too overwhelming for the system. So I'm going to show you two really simple techniques that have been demonstrated to bring up the parasympathetic nervous system, calm down the sympathetic nervous system, and enhance your immune response. So the first one's called the butterfly technique. And in the butterfly technique, all you do is you have your two hands and you cross them in front of each other and you connect them by your thumbs so that your hand looks like the wings of a butterfly. And you place your hands just right on your chest. Place them right on your chest, right over your heart, and you just give gentle pressure. So what's underneath your hands right there, something called the thymus gland is right here on your left-hand side. It's above the heart. The thymus gland sends out wonderful immune cells. And this gentle pressure actually activates the thymus gland and helps support and strengthen the immune response. It's also a way of connecting, isn't it? It's a way of connecting with yourself, connecting with your heart. And it's a way of settling your whole body right down. So that's a beautiful thing you can do. The butterfly, it's called the butterfly hug. Just give yourself a gentle squeeze. The other thing is called heart-centered breathing. And it's a very simple technique. It's a 3-step process. It's available at a website called heartmath.com. And it's, as I said, very, very simple. 3 steps. The first step is to simply close your eyes and bring attention to your heart center. And the heart center is where you think it would be. It's where your heart is, and it goes all around, front and back, that center of your chest. So that's your heart center. And as you close your eyes and bring your attention to your heart center, you simply breathe in and breathe out. You don't try to change your breath in any way. You just breathe in and breathe out with an awareness around that heart center. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is you begin to actually count your breath. And for most people, a 4 count in, 4 count out breath is really manageable and it's very settling. So you would breathe in for 4 counts and breathe out for 4 counts. And breathe in for the count of 4 and breathe out for the count of 4. And that's step 2. So step 1, bring your focus to that heart center. Step 2, begin a counted breath. You breathe in for the count of 4, 1 breath in for the count of 4, 1 breath out for the count of 4. Already your nervous system is happy. Then the third thing, and here's the magic sauce, the third thing you do is while you're breathing in and breathing out and thinking of that heart center, you conjure a picture of an experience that you've had where you have felt happy. You conjure a picture of an experience that you've had where you have felt bliss or joy or satisfaction or appreciation. And appreciation can be for anything. It can be for a person, a place, a thing. And as you breathe in, focusing on that heart center, breathing in for 4, breathing out for 4, and you begin to conjure an experience of appreciation or happiness or bliss, your body doesn't know the difference that you're not in that moment having that experience. And guess what? All the chemicals in your body change from stress to happy. Your sympathetic nervous system gets turned off, the parasympathetic nervous system gets turned on, and the body really begins to heal. So between butterfly hug, and heart-centered breathing, and you'll know you've got it when you can't help but smile. When you can't help but smile when you're doing that 3-step process that can literally happen in about 30 seconds, your body is already beginning to reset itself. So those are 2 techniques that I can leave you with. And now I'd like to open it up to any questions.
Please feel free to enter any questions you may have in the right-hand corner under questions.
Okay, let's see here. Yes, I do have a question here for you, Jan.
Okay.
The first question I have is, how long does it take for the immune system to heal?
That's a great question. And the good news is that it can be immediate. Immediately, when we begin to do any of these techniques, your body begins to reset itself. The body is really built to heal and to heal quickly. So as soon as you pay attention to it, as soon as you take a beat, do one of these techniques, or take something that's really supportive of the system, the body can begin to heal.
Great, thank you. And then another one that just came in is, can you name some of the B vitamins or tell us how to find them?
Sure. There are some products that are simply a single B vitamin. So you might get a product that's just B12, or a product that's just B6. But most companies sell a really good multi-B complex, and they may even be called stress B, because there are many B vitamins. The body needs all of them. And except in certain conditions where you may need a real excess of B12, or if you're a vegetarian and you know you want to get additional B12, you're really looking for a good stress multi. And they will, usually the dosage on the bottle will be a good indicator of how many of those B vitamins you would want every day. Great question.
Great, thank you. And we do have one more here. This says, do even the little things help?
Yeah, even the littlest things help, again, because the body doesn't know the difference. And so we all know that, when we're very bored in a lecture, hopefully not today, it can seem like time is taking forever. And yet when we're really doing something we love, it's like a blink. So the body has this really interesting way of dealing with time in a way that has to do with how we're feeling. So when we do even a little thing that brings more joy, more affection, more self-care, more sense of connection, even the littlest thing can immediately shift the entire system. And that's, again, why I wanted to really do this talk. It really is that simple. And what I wanted to mention is, if anyone from today does want more tailored information, more specific information about what's happening in your life and maybe some of the ABCs that could be the most helpful to you, just to please feel free to reach out and contact me through my website.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Jan, so much. This has been great information and recommendations and practical tips. Really appreciate your time today. I hope everyone has come away from Jan's presentation with some new and useful information. Please take a moment to complete the 3-question evaluation at the close of the session. We do very much value your feedback, and also keep an eye on your inbox for a copy of the recording to share with friends and colleagues. Before we wrap up, I want to let everyone on the phone know, on our webinar know about some benefits, including telemedicine benefits for behavioral health, stress and anxiety, and others. First, Jan did mention nicotine and smoking, and Always Health Partners offers our members tobacco cessation counseling at no additional charge. There's also a pharmacy benefit for nicotine replacement therapy, such as the patch. If you get a doctor's prescription, there is coverage for that for over-the-counter products. If you'd like more information or assistance quitting smoking, quitting tobacco, please call the customer service number on the back of your ID card and ask to speak with a tobacco treatment specialist. And then finally, in order to keep people healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19, Always Health Partners, along with many other carriers, has significantly expanded coverage for telemedicine. We do urge everyone to continue to keep up with your appointments particularly around condition management and for any new concerns. Behavioral health also is a covered benefit for Always Health Partners members, and again, available through telemedicine. So please take advantage of that service. So thank you very much from both from both Jan and me. Enjoy this beautiful day and be well.